is Kevin Fernandez, and welcome to my channel, Gamers Genie. Today, we're going to learn the magical push your luck game, Lizard Wizard. This 1 to 5 player game designed by Glenn Drover and published by Forbidden Games. The land of Astoria is a magical land dripping with wonder and whimsy. And archmages are vying throughout the land to find powerful wizards that can harness and control this magical power. Wizards from all over are trying to compete to try to successfully become a Grand Archmage. Will you be one of those archmages? Or unfortunately, will you be going down into the dungeons? Find out as we go to the table and learn how to play Lizard Wizard. Shuffle the reagent gathering cards and deal 3 cards to each player. Place the remaining cards near the board in a draw deck. Place 1 reagent token on the lowest value in their corresponding track. So we got Mandrake, which goes right here. We got Eye of Newt, which goes right here. Nightshade goes right here. Sulfur, which goes here. Foxglove goes right here. The Toadstool goes here, and the horn which goes right here. Place the remaining tokens near the board. I'll put them right here. Each player selects 2 reagent tokens and then place the remaining tokens near the board to act as the supply, as well as all the coins near the board to act as a bank. And this one's going to be a little off camera, so create the wizard deck by removing certain wizards based on the number of players. If you're playing a 2-player game, remove 2 wizards from each school of magic. If you're playing a 3-player game, remove 1 wizard from each school of magic. And if you're playing a 4 to 5 player game, you just keep all wizards. So, because we are playing a 2-player game, since this is going to be a setup for a 2-player game, we are removing 2 wizards of each school from the deck, and we're going to return those to the box. Shuffle the remaining wizard cards to make the wizard deck. And I'm going to use my, well, I'm not going to really use my Genie Magic because it's a small deck. And place it face down on the board. You turn 2 cards face up and place them in the spots next to the deck. These cards are available for selection when the recruit wizard action is taken. Create the tower deck by placing the cards in order based on their cost in regions shown at the bottom of the card. Down here. The 7 cards with the cost of 1 reagent is on the top, then 2 underneath them, and so on. Once the deck is in order, place it face down on the board. Select the top card and place it in the spot next to the tower deck, face up. However, because this is a 2-player game, we must remove all towers with the reagent of 1, and we'll place them back in the box. So it'll be 2 and higher. If you're playing a 3-player game, you remove all 7 tower cards that cost 4, and if it's a 4 or 5 player game, then you just keep all of the towers. Create the familiar deck by placing cards in order based on their cost and mana. The 7 cards with the cost of 5 face down on top in random order. Then the 7 cards with the cost of 10 underneath them, and so on. Once the deck is in order, place it on the board and select the top 2 cards and place them in the spots next to the cleared deck face up. The familiar deck face up. Remove all 7 familiar cards with the cost of 5 mana. Okay, take those. We'll put them back in the box with the rest of everything. If you're playing 3 players, you remove all character familiars with the cost of 25 mana. And if you're playing 4 or 5, you get to use all the familiar cards. So, 1, 2. Shuffle the spell cards and place the deck face down on the board. Draw 4 spell cards from the deck and place them face up on their spots next to the spell deck. These 4 cards are available for purchase. And since it's pretty full, I'm just going to give them a once over. Spell deck. And we got 1. We got 2. 3. And 4 spell cards. Remove trap cards and set them aside for possible use later. Shuffle the remaining dungeon cards including all monster, gold, and item treasure cards, and place the deck face down in the spot on the board. So, place it right there. Shuffle and draw 4 random achievement cards. And they're going to go like right here. There's like a little row up here. And it's going to be a little bit off camera. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Place the remaining tiles back in the game box as they will not be used for the rest of the game. Select a start player randomly and place the start token in front of them. Place the gold coins near the board. And that completes the setup. The start player will take the first turn each round and may perform 1 action followed likewise by each player around the table clockwise to complete the round. On a player's turn, they may perform 1 of the following 6 actions. After gathering for each reagent shown in the increase value down here area of the card, increase its mana value by 1 on the reagent track at the top of the game board. So you gather these 3 at the top here. This is one of your actions. And then you would increase 2 and 1. And you do this by playing one of your reagent gathering cards from your hand. So we'll pick this one now for the example. Take 3 of the commodity tokens. So take 2 newt's eyes and some sulfur. There you go. And that's the gather resource is this red spot up here. And you take that from the supply and place them in front of you. This means that on the same card that you may not get all of the reagent tokens shown, you will have to choose 3 that you want. This maximum may be increased with some spells. After gathering for each reagent shown, increase in the increase value area card, increase its mana value by 1 on the reagent track at the top of the game board. So monster horns go up 2 and sulfur goes up 1. After taking your reagent tokens and increasing the value, place the played card in the discard pile. Face up next to the reagent gathering draw deck. Draw a new reagent card from the deck to refill your hand to your maximum. Players have a maximum of 3 reagent gathering cards. The maximum may be increased with some spells. Wizard cards are valuable for scoring at the end of the game. They also confer a very valuable bonus gathering ability to their owners. Each wizard card has a reagent symbol in the upper left corner there. right here. When you gather reagents, you also gather one extra reagent of the correct type of each reagent symbol on your wizard cards. After gathering your reagents, you may cast one spell if you have the necessary ingredients. Each player may have only up to 10 reagent tokens at any one time. If a player gathers reagents, action brings their reagent total to more than 10 in front of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Currently I have 5, but if I had 5 more and I wanted to go a little more further, I would need to immediately discard my choice of reagent tokens back to the supply to get back down to 10. This limit is raised by 1 for each tower card a player owns. The Root Cellar spell also increases the limit by 10. So that would be in this deck here. You may trade any quantity of a single type of reagent that you own, converting it to mana. Place the reagent tokens being converted into the supply and take the current value of reagent tokens. So place this into the supply and I take 2. Two mana tokens, and of course I decrease it by the number. After conversion, the value of the converted reagent is reduced by the number of units converted. Select wizard cards from the 2 on offer. This wizard will be battled over by all archmages in a magical duel. The duel operates like an auction, where each player, starting with the recruiting player, bids in turn more or passes. Once a player has passed, they may not bid again. The player with the winning bid gets the wizard card and pays their mana bid. The wizard card is placed in front of them to show that they own it. So currently, let's say I bid 2. Nobody could bid higher than me. So then I take the wizard and place it in front of me to show that I own it. The empty spot in the offer is then refilled with a new card from the deck. There must always be 2 cards on the offer unless the deck is exhausted. If the player that started the duel does not win, then they may perform any other action, including another recruitment. If the player who started the auction wins the auction, then their turn ends. A little note, no player may bid more than the mana that they have. So if you have 100, you can't bid past 100. If you have 1, you can't bid past 1. There are special rules for bidding in a 2-player game, but we'll talk about that in my gameplay video. To research a spell, select one of the 4 spells on offer and pay the mana cost shown in the upper left corner, right here. That spell card is then placed face down in front of you, a little to the left of your face-up spells, to show that you own it. But it has not yet been cast. A new spell card, so I spend the 5, say I have 5, spend the 5. I'll take this invisibility potion, put it over there. It's not been used. Then a new spell card is then taken. After researching a new spell, you may cast the spell if you have the necessary reagents. So according to this, I need Eye of Newt, and I can steal 1 gold per Eye of Newt. I have 2, so I can steal 2 gold. Now, just to let you know, there are 3 ways of casting a spell. So the first way is when you gather reagents, you may cast 1 spell. When you research a new spell, this is the other way, you can cast that spell. And the third way is when you summon a familiar and select the Gather Reagents and Cast Spells option, you can cast as many spells as you want. In all 3 cases, you must have the necessary reagents shown at the bottom of the spell to cast the spell. To cast and pay the reagents shown, placing them back into the supply. And the spell is then immediately activated. To keep track of the status of your spells, it is recommended that you place your spell cards in one of two places in front of you. Number 1, spells that you have researched but are not active face down to your left. And number 2, spells that you have cast and are currently active face up directly in front of you. So a little more off to your side. And now, to mention that there are some durations to this spell, and there are 2 types that I can mention. So the first one is an ongoing effect, and that's when it has this symbol right here. This effect remains in effect for the rest of the game. And I took this from the bottom of the deck, so I shall put it back to the bottom of the deck. The second type is the one that I just grabbed previously, and that is the one-time use. That will have this 1x on it, or the one-time symbol. These are so powerful that a wizard cannot cast it a second time and survive. Once these are cast, the spell card is placed face down in a pile to your right of use spell and familiar cards. They still belong to you though, so don't worry, you don't lose them. Another option you can have is create a tower. Purchase the available tower right here by paying the specified reagents displayed on the bottom left of the card, or the number of gold coins displayed on the bottom right. And that is right there. The reagent tokens used for payment are placed back in the supply near the board. The purchased card is placed in front of the player who purchased it, and the new card, so say I had the 2, place them in there, and the new card is placed in front of me, and then we flip it face up, flip a new card face up onto the board. So there's always one tower card available for purchase, unless the deck is exhausted. Little reminder, towers also increase the owning player's reagent storage capacity by 1 per tower card. You can purchase one of the 2 available familiar cards by paying the mana cost shown in the upper left corner, right there. Familiar cards must be used immediately upon purchase for one of 4 actions. The first action is scoring. When using a familiar, you score. To score, you will receive 1 gold per card that you own that shares the same school of magic as the familiar. Cards that may be counted towards this total include wizards, towers, spells, and other familiar cards. The other one is you can gather reagents and cast spells when using a familiar. For this purpose, you will collect the reagents shown on the card, so this one will allow you to gather 4 toadstools. Then you may cast spells that you own and have the reagents for. The third thing is new research. When using a familiar card to conduct new research, you will first clear the spell offer, remove all 4 face-up spell cards, and place them at the bottom of the spell deck. You will then draw 4 new spell cards and place them face up on the board in the designated research spells area. Then you can take one of the 4 new spell cards for free, take this one, placing it face up in front of you and replacing it in the offer with a new card from the spell deck. And finally, you can enter a dungeon. When using a familiar card to enter the dungeon, you will draw a card from the top of the dungeon deck. It's a treasure. If it is a monster, then you take 1 hit. If it is a treasure card, you do not take a hit. After drawing a card, you may elect to draw another card or end your dungeon delving expedition. If at any point you take a second hit, you are defeated and you will get nothing. Shuffle all the monster and treasure cards that you drew on this expedition back into the dungeon deck. However, if you end the expedition before you get hit, you get to keep all the treasures and stop placing them in front of you, you immediately take gold coins equal to the number that is shown. So both of these call for 1 gold coin that you won on the expedition. Treasure cards may be worth victory points at the end of the game. Any monster cards drawn on this expedition are still reshuffled back into the dungeon. So this is a treasure. Here we go. So if I would have gotten 2 monsters like this gargoyle, yeah, the gargoyle and the golem, then I would have gotten hit. I would then kind of just shuffle the deck back up, and that would be that. But since I didn't, I get to keep the treasure. Once all treasure has been collected from the dungeon, entering the dungeon is no longer possible. A little note, the used familiar is still yours, but you still need to immediately replace the familiar that you took back to the summon familiar spaces. There must always be, just like with the wizards, there must always be 2 familiars out on the board, unless the deck is depleted, of course. On your turn, if you meet the conditions of an achievement, as shown on the achievement, you get to take the achievement by, so let's say I got 7 towers, so let's say some rounds have passed, I got 7 towers. So then I get to take this 7 towers achievement. And of course, just like everything else, you place it in front of you. Put that right there. Each achievement is worth 10 victory points by the end of the game. Play continues around the table until any one of the following decks is depleted: Wizard, Tower, Spell, or Familiar. I want to say a little note before continuing. I have played this game at least, I think, several times, and I think even with a full count of players for Lizard Wizard, we have still not depleted the spell deck. And this does include all the face-up cards too. So even if this is gone, but there's still 2 wizards, these need to be gone. Same thing with the familiars, the spells, and the towers. So if there's still some cards there, the deck is not depleted. When this occurs, finish the current round until all players who have not yet taken their turn have done so. A little note, the last player in every game is the player to the right of the starting player who went first at the beginning of the game. Then the game ends. Each player will score points as follows. Every wizard card plus a tower pair owned by a player is worth 5 victory points if the schools of magic on both cards do not match. Every wizard card plus a tower card pair owned by a player is worth 10 if they do match. Every spell card that is in front of that is from the same school of magic as the matching wizard or tower pair, wizard-tower pair, is worth 5 victory points. Any wizard or tower that is not able to be paired is worth 1 victory point. Gold coins score victory points equal to the value on the coin. Spells that score victory points score as instructed on the spell card as long as the spell has been cast. Dungeon items score victory points for the following players. The player with the most treasure items or tied for the most items scores 10 victory points. The player with the second most treasure items or tied for the second most gets 5. Achievement tiles score 10 victory points. The player with the most victory points at the end of the game is the winner. In case of a tie, the tied player with the most mana is the winner. And that's all you need to know to play Lizard Wizard. If you have any questions about this game, please put them in the comments below, and I'll get to them as soon as I possibly can. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell to be notified for videos just like this. And if you are a big fan of the channel as a whole, consider becoming a Patreon supporter on our Patreon page. You can support us for as little as $1 a month, which can unlock special stuff like getting early access to how to play videos, just like this one. Be on the lookout for our upcoming gameplay video on Lizard Wizard, but until then, thanks for the views.